Motivation is a very important topic in management, as you might guess, and we're going to take a little bit of time here. We're going to start this unit by talking a little bit about why we worry about motivation, why it's something that's important to us, and a little bit about motives and the difficulty of understanding them in a situation where you're worried about more than one person's motivation. So, first off, we have a definition. Motivation reflects the intensity of a desire to start or continue the pursuit of a goal. One of the key issues is we know people have many things they think about doing and intend to do and maybe even expect to do, but that they don't do. Without motivation, we're not going to see that actual behavior. So motivation is the way that we get action toward either personal or organizational goals. Motivation is a key component, but without ability and opportunity, we're not going to see performance either. So we need to have a motivated person who has the capabilities to work, and that person has to be provided with the opportunity to carry out the tasks that the organization wants them to do. Here's one of my favorite Dilberts. It's not too complicated. Wally, I asked you to help Alice on her project, but all you did was tell her to work harder. You can't just tell somebody to work harder and expect it to happen. And Wally says, aren't you doing that right now? The boss says, shut up and go work harder. This is particularly important in a time when we really don't typically command the power and status to tell people exactly what they should do and have them go and do that, which is something that we need to consider throughout. Why are motives difficult to understand? Well, first off, individuals have different motives. Some people are very motivated by learning in and of itself. So you might join an engineering management class on organization behavior and leadership because you want to learn about it. Other people are ambition and achievement oriented. They might join such a class because they want to get a higher degree and they want to get a better job ultimately. So we have very different motives for many, many things. And that means that's going to create something of an issue for the person who is trying to lead such a group. Motives also change within individuals over time, either the long term, like over a life cycle or a career cycle, or over a day. So in career cycles, we can quickly point to examples. People just starting out look at the amount in their pocket at the end of the week. And they also think a lot about, is this job challenging, interesting, fun, and can I get some upward mobility with it? People at mid-level stages are often thinking about, well, I want to make sure I have all the benefits I need to protect my family. I need to be thinking about retirement one day, and that's going to be a whole different set of motives that have kicked in over the time the person has been working. Within a day, of course, everybody knows we come to work, we're relatively motivated, we hit that lunchtime slump, and of course, by the time it's later in the afternoon, we may be anxious to get out the door. So a leader or a supervisor is going to have to think a little bit about how those motives will play into what he or she asks people to do and when. Motives conflict with one another. Everybody wants to do well on the test. At the same time, if there's a party the night you were going to study, that's a little bit of a problem. That's a choice that people have to make. In your case, it might be you want to do well in the course. You also want to do well at your job. You also want to keep your family together and happy. Those are motives that can conflict one another primarily because of time. The examples I've given are about time, but there can be some other things that come up, such as in substance. It may be difficult to do things that you are asked to do at work and maintain a happy family life at home. So we know that people have many motives in many different life domains, and they conflict with one another, and that's going to be a problem for a manager who doesn't necessarily have insight into which way an individual is going to jump. Motives aren't observable. This makes it clearly a difficult problem. What we see is behavior. We see people's behavior. We don't see what they really are thinking. So if I see you posting on the discussion forum, I don't know why you chose to do that beyond that I asked you to. I don't know what motives are really driving that. And the same thing at work. I can't see why somebody seems to be working hard and somebody doesn't, or why somebody achieves their goals and somebody else doesn't. So we infer motives because We think they have to be there in order to see the behavior. We infer something about motives from behavior, but it's not fully accurate. Another thing is, of course, if I ask you what motivates you, you may, in fact, either not fully understand your own motives, or you may, of course, lie if your motives are not so socially desirable. We're going to look at a cognitive motion, a model of motivation to give us a framework for thinking about these. And each of these beliefs that are characterized in this model are things that you can utilize to increase people's motivation. So we'll talk about that for a few minutes. Expectancy explains how people make choices. How do I decide how hard to work on this, what path to take, whether I'm going to work on project X or project Y? It does address individual differences because it suggests that the beliefs about motivation that any individual hold are subjective. That is, they're not necessarily a reflection of reality, or in the case of valuing incentives, they're not necessarily things that everybody would agree on. It's also a very rationalistic approach that suggests that people are going to do what is in their own best interest subjectively. We're going to choose to optimize our outcomes to the best ability that we have. So first, we're going to specify two types of outcomes. There's an outcome that's related to performance. So if I can perform a specific behavior, that would be a first level outcome. And the second level outcome, of course, is the reward that I hope or expect to get from that first level outcome. So if I think about a business that's simple in terms of description, like selling cars. So my performance would be selling a car. My desired second level reward would be being able to realize some incentive reward from that. Here's a classroom example. So getting 89% of the questions on a test correctly, that might be a first level performance outcome that we might care about. I chose 89 on purpose, right, because it's slightly ambiguous. My reward is getting the A on the test. Getting 89% of the questions right in some situations would probably guarantee me an A. In other situations, I wouldn't have a chance of getting an A. So that probability is something that's in people's heads. It's something that people are imagining based on whatever data they have. So let's look a little bit further underneath those two outcomes at the beliefs that people have that link the outcomes together. First off, we care about the valence or the attractiveness or utility of an outcome. So do the available rewards relate to my personal goals? In this case, it would be, do I care about getting that A very much? Or is it B just as good given that I'm working already and I'm just trying to get through my program? So do the available rewards relate to my personal goals? For some undergraduates, that A would be all important. For people in professional programs, sometimes they're not. So if we think about what works in terms of rewards, what's valent for people as opposed to other animals, beliefs and perceptions and emotions are central to the motivation, and whether it's something that's motivating or not. We can see that for mice, it's going to be cheese for all of them. For people, what's motivating is based on their beliefs, emotions, cognitions, and so on. So it's a little bit different. And here's a cartoon demonstrating that. My pay is below market. Can I have a 20% raise, says Dilbert. No, but I'll let you use 2 flat screen monitors in your cubicle so it feels like you're an evil genius in a secret lair. And there's Dilbert going, wahaha, obviously very happy at that outcome. And while he understands the whole thing, he says, who got the second monitor? So obviously a second monitor might be something that would be a lot cheaper, needless to say, than a 20% raise or some other things that somebody might ask for, but it might actually give you more bang for your buck. Here's another thing that we sometimes see is recognition programs in organizations. This one turned out to be a rather bad one, but it's a copy of a recognition form that somebody found discarded in an employee lounge a long time ago. Actively carrying recognition form through optimism, empowerment, and teamwork, we can make valuable differences. The idea was that a supervisor could write that to any of their employees. The problem was that there was a battle between employees and management about the employees not feeling that they were treated professionally or getting paid enough. You can imagine that getting a form like this when you think you're being actively mistreated is probably not going to be a very valuable thing. The key thing for you, of course, is to make it a valuable thing, to make it credible. Here's another one that compares pay to other things. I'm grossly underpaid. I want a raise. Oh, Dilbert, Dilbert, Dilbert. What? People don't work here for the money. They work here for the challenge. And Dilbert says, if challenges are more valuable than money, why don't you give me your money and I'll give you my challenges? And the pointy-haired boss says, I must kill him before he infects the others. Obviously, some people do value those challenges. But typically they value the challenges when they are either at early stages of their careers or they are already paid enough money to sort of not feel underpaid or not feel that they're being unfairly treated. Let's go back to our expectancy terms. That was a little bit about different valences that we might expect to see. So do I have a valence for those challenges? Do I have a valence for recognition from my boss? Here's another term, expectancy or effort to performance expectancy, the belief that a particular behavior or effort will be followed by a specific performance outcome. Earlier we used the car example. So do I believe that my effort will lead to a performance outcome at a specific level? So if we think about that, it would be, do I believe that if I make a bunch of cold calls, am I going to be able to sell a car? If I am able to talk to 10 people on the lot today, am I going to be able to sell a car? Those are effort-based behaviors. The performance, of course, is can I sell the car or not? Our last term here for expectancy is that link between performance and rewards. So what I'm concerned about here is, does the performance of selling the car actually lead to some sort of reward that I want? So what's the perceived probability of obtaining that reward or second level outcome given that a performance outcome or first level outcome has actually been achieved? Will I get a reward for having met a performance goal? My example with this is always, well, how did you learn that you were likely to get an incentive for some level of performance? Did you go out to the bar and your boss say, oh yeah, if you sell 5 cars this week, I'll be sure to give you a $2,000 bonus after you've had 6 beers? Or is it in your contract? That's going to have a huge difference as to whether you believe that performing at a certain level is going to get you a certain type of reward that you care about. So ultimately, what we're looking at is an equation that looks something like this. It's more complicated, but this is a good proxy. So it's instrumentality times expectancy times valence leads to motivation. So if I believe that I can accomplish the performance, the behavior that's desired, if I believe that that performance is linked to rewards, and if I really like those rewards, I should be motivated. This theory can incorporate a lot of stuff that we talk about around motivation, like goals, self-efficacy, trust and fairness perceptions, right? That's one of the reasons why we want to make sure that we have a fundamental understanding of it as we go forward.